Hello everyone, it's Peter Soby again. We are here with the Distill It with RichardListens show at the Stanford University campus. And I am here with Dr. Richard Oelberger, and our guest is Dr. Anna Lembke here at Stanford. She is the chief of addiction medicine and an assistant professor at Stanford University School of Medicine. And we're sitting here in her office right now. Thank you, Dr. Anna, for being with us here today.
Well, thank you for coming all the way to Stanford to visit with me.
Yes, and what brought you to Stanford University?
Well, I came to Stanford for medical school, and then I stayed on to do my psychiatry residency, and then shortly thereafter I joined the faculty here in the Department of Psychiatry, and now I am the chief of our addiction medicine dual diagnosis clinic.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you.
And another amazing thing you have done recently, Dr. Richard?
Anna is the noted author of Drug Dealer MD. She's also a diplomate in neurology or psychiatry and
addiction medicine.
Addiction medicine, thank you. I keep throwing in the neurology part or something. She's also been a guest on NPR.
Yes.
And she was kind enough to let us redecorate her office. So that shows some flexibility on some personality scale there.
And you know, even though this interview is about Dr. Anna, Dr. Richard, tell our audience why, you know, we're here kind of like on a sports journey, quote unquote, but why is this aspect of things important to us too, to interview people like Dr. Anna?
Well, it's important. The more athletes we get in touch with, the more we see people who are also struggling with depression and anxieties that indeed need our professional help to also understand some of the drawbacks of long-term and short-term, and to educate the public in general about what's happening when they take, especially a lot of painkiller medicines. And we want to get them in touch with the experts. We want you to have access to our journey and to meet the amazing people who have the knowledge at the source. So we're lucky enough to be here with Dr. Anna, who has done research on what happens when you take, painkillers over time. What happens when that dependency sets in, and what might be some of the red flags or things you can do to shift yourself out of that, if there is such a thing, because it is becoming an addiction.
Yeah, well, one of the major points I try to make in my book is that the current opioid crisis that we find ourselves in as a nation really began with patients going to doctors with legitimate pain complaints, seeking help, and doctors with good intentions prescribing opioids and other addictive drugs to try to help their patients. So I think it's really important to understand that this all began really out of a well-intentioned motive on the part of doctors to help patients who were presenting with pain. And this is really pertinent to the work you do with athletes, because very often, in the course of an athletic career, people get injured and they go to see the doctor and they get started on something like Vicodin or Percocet or OxyContin. And then, over time, that individual can get addicted to opioids, even if they began their use through a doctor's prescription. And so that's one of the major points that my book tries to describe, using patient stories from my own patients here in my clinic, this sort of insidious process, very gradual process by which people can be taking a medication for a medical condition and then over time become addicted to that medication.
Yeah. So what do you say to your colleagues or other doctors out there about screening for, other things that people might be asking for when they're asking for the medications, or how to troubleshoot, long-term solutions, being that there may still be a real injury there, or
right.
And they may have flare-ups over time.
Right. Well, one of the things that we realize now that we didn't realize, let's say, 2 decades ago about opioids like Vicodin and Percocet and OxyContin is that although they're fantastic treatment short-term for pain, let's say on the order of 3 to 7 days, once you start taking them daily, long-term, not only do they stop working, but they're associated with a lot of other very serious side effects. So that's something that we now, as a medical profession, realize in retrospect. And because of that, we are generally recommending that patients don't take opioids long-term for a chronic pain condition. It's okay to use them, in the wake of an acute injury or right after a surgery, but you want to get off of them as quickly as possible. The other thing that we've realized is that if you have your own personal history of addiction, or you have a family member who has a history of a substance use disorder, you are at much higher risk than the general population of becoming addicted to opioids, even if prescribed by a doctor for a legitimate pain condition. So these are sort of new understandings in the medical profession, and we're now training doctors in a different way to practice differently than they did a few decades ago, primarily because we have seen so many young people, middle-aged, older people, athletes, as a prime example, going in for an acute injury, getting put on opioids, and then, 2 years later still being on those opioids and having great difficulty getting off.
How does that juxtapose with Big Pharma, who wants to make money and push their opioids?
Right, so I have a whole chapter in my book which really does describe the role of Big Pharma, the pharmaceutical industry, and they did play a huge role in this opioid epidemic. Basically, they misbranded opioids as more effective than they actually are, especially for minor pain and chronic pain conditions, and also less addictive than they actually are. Purdue Pharma, for example, the makers of OxyContin, had to pay over $600 million in fines for misbranding opioids as more effective than they actually are and less addictive than they actually are. So the pharmaceutical industry has played an enormous role in fueling this epidemic. But one of the points that I make in my book, which I think is really important, is that the pharmaceutical industry has been pushing its wares for, a century. So the real question is, what's different about opioids and why now? And one of the major points that I make is what Big Pharma did is it partnered with academia and other branches of big medicine to push this agenda forward. It never could have done it alone without the partnership of leaders in the medical profession, and I think that that's a piece of that puzzle that's really important to understand.
And how about for athletes where, they're on the sideline, they do have real injury, they are putting their body under extreme physical stress, and they may not even know what they're getting in the shot with the trainer.
Right.
How do you, is there a mechanism on big universities to work with the staff and trainers and the athletes to make them aware of the side effects or withdrawals they're going through?
Right. Well, I mean, what's so hard for athletes is there's such an incredible pressure for them to continue to be able to perform, whether it's at the collegiate level because they have to keep their scholarships, or whether it's at the professional level so they can maintain their contract and their income. And so, how do you balance these enormous pressures with the very real risks involved taking medications like opioids consistently? So again, the major messages here is that opioids like Vicodin and Percocet, short-term and intermittently, are good treatment for pain. What you do not want to get into is the daily use extended over time, because what happens then is the brain adapts to the presence of the drug. It no longer works. You need more and more to get the same effect, and you become dependent, such that if you try to stop, you experience painful withdrawal. So that's really the lesson. Opioids are not, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's a time and a place to use those medications, but very sparingly and only intermittently and for as short a time as possible at the lowest dose possible.
Mm-hmm. So has this led to the use of different alternative remedies for dealing with pain? Are programs implementing much more like hydrotherapies or trying to transition people off or wean them off?
Right.
Will they go that far?
Well, yes, so that's the big push in medicine now, and I spend much of my professional time getting out there trying to educate physicians about the importance of limiting the use of opioids for the treatment of chronic pain, taking people off of opioids when they can, and using alternative therapies, because really in the long run, alternative therapies are more effective. And when I say alternative therapies, what I'm talking about is physical therapy, massage, acupuncture, non-opioid medications like Tylenol, ibuprofen, aspirin, also used in moderation. Those are the types of interventions. And also, you know, when you think about athletes, rest, right? Like we have to change our culture so that we make it okay for high-level and professional athletes to just take time off.
Right. And a lot of our experience with athletes on the show, there's this confusion from a young age. If I don't play, am I playing? Does the coach want me to play? Do they want me to recover? Do they want me to wait till the season's over to have the surgery because they need me to play? We're recently discussing the books Until It Hurts, even on youth sports, this pressure to constantly be a machine and be out there even as young as 8 years old with symptoms of tendinitis.
Right, and I think feeding that machine, unfortunately, is this myth that doctors can heal anything. I mean, young people today, and even older than young people, really do believe that modern medicine can perform miracles, and no matter how badly you're hurt, you can go in there and get patched up. And what we really need to educate people about is that's not possible. Mostly we're really quite limited in what we can do. And so you really have to take care of your body to the extent that you're able, because you're going to have just that one body for your whole life.
That's right. And there may be a natural healing or recovery process that you have to go through.
Right.
So now that you have this book written, do you have another book in your mind that you're getting ready to write?
Yes, I do. So I'm thinking about another book that would be sort of dovetail off of some of the ideas that I talk about in this book, but for a more general audience, just about how we can cope in a culture that's so infused with opportunities for dopamine. Is sort of, it's a hard time to live because our access to drugs and other very rewarding experiences is everywhere. And so the book really tries to delve into how do we achieve the good life in the world that we live in today.
Right. And so this book, Drug Dealer MD, can people get it on Amazon? Or?
They can get it on Amazon. They can get it directly from the publisher, Johns Hopkins University Press. They can get it at Barnes & Nobles, their local bookstores.
Amazing. Drug Dealer MD, written by Dr. Anna Lembke from Stanford University, who we have the pleasure of being with here today in her office on the campus of Stanford University. Dr. Anna, thank you so much for allowing us in here in your space and for sharing your time with us. And thank you for tuning in to our little remote video interview here for Distill It with Richard Listens.
Thanks to all our listeners. A message to all the athletes out there, please, we just want to help you become more aware, take care of your bodies, develop your own awareness and consciousness about your life and how you're living, healing, growing, prospering. We want the full developed athlete at all levels from youth sports on up. We want to thank the Stanford Department of Psychiatry and Dr. Lembke for welcoming us on such short notice, and we're thankful for all of you who share, like, comment, and offer feedback. We're grateful to it, and I'm appreciative to be a part of your process. Any final words, Dr. Lembke?
Thanks for letting me talk about my book.
Yes.
Are we hired as interior decorators?
You're totally hired.
Okay, for those of you know where to reach us.
Yes. So thank you, and you'll be getting another video from us tomorrow. We'll see you soon.